It was your broadcast. It's listed on mine as possibility of God dash word traps.
Really?
The one you had with Matt Slick. Do you remember the one?
Yeah, well, some people think it was Matt Slick. I don't know.
It sounds like his voice.
You know what, though? We didn't have a whole lot of people watching. I'd be surprised if it was. But, I mean, either way, it was a fun conversation.
Too many broadcasts.
Yeah.
Unless somebody's doing an awful good disguise.
But you were talking about word traps?
Yeah. But at least you know the broadcast I'm referring to, right?
I do.
Okay. What I was surprised, when I listened to it, was that it didn't end much sooner than it did. It could have ended because, let's just call him Matt for the time being. When he says God could be defined as the ultimacy of reality, you could have ended it right there and say, and focused in on the word could be and say you don't accept it.
True. But while I agree with you, I wanted to flesh out the conversation a little bit more. Whenever a theist calls in, I want to meet them where they're at, and however they want to define their deity, I'll take that, and then I'll talk to them about that. Otherwise, I'd be strawmanning them. I don't know, Dan, is that kind of the same in SE?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, like, a part of SE is just being accessible and meeting people where they're at. So, like, one of the things we talk about with people is they'll give a definition of faith. And you'll hear the whole gambit of what that means. And you might have a personal definition that disagrees with that. But if you are able to just work with what they already believe and just kind of go from there, usually the conversation is much more productive because you don't have to argue over semantics of definitions and stuff. You're already working with the construct that they have, yeah.
Right, except that the problem is what he was trying to do. And the reason I have a very good sneaking suspicion of Matt Slick is because I've heard too many broadcasts and I know the way he argues. Because what he's asking you to do is to accept what he's saying. And if it's not God, what else fulfills the criteria?
Yeah.
Yeah, if
In
there's
other words, it's a type of straw manning.
It is, and it's something that, I mean, if we would have ended the call there, they wouldn't have seen the contortions that he had to do to get to where he was, right?
But no insult intended, Eric.
Oh, what's
but
up?
You were also contorting.
How so? Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just really felt it was circular. It was going around. It was saying the same thing.
Well, now help me out here. Help me out here, because the conversation, as I remember it, was that he was saying that you needed a God to be able to make logical arguments because you need to have faith.
Among other things, yes.
Okay, which part are you referring to?
Basically, the whole thing. After that, because when I first heard that could be defined, I said, wait a minute. This is already dead.
Yeah,
you can define a God as anything you want.
And he defined it that way.
You just said, basically. So what all he did was he defines God in such a way that his argument works.
Yeah.
That's dishonest.
Well, not necessarily. I've had some people say, oh, well, God is like the universe, man. And if they think that is what God is, a impersonal definition of the universe, then I have to admit that God exists.
Yeah, and if he's specifically trying to make it like the Christian God, the more personal theistic God, then I would say that's dishonest. But if you're just starting with that base...
I'm sorry, I'm less liberal. He's saying this God exists, it has these characteristics, and it's responsible for the following. In other words, he knows the nature, the acts, the will of this God.
Well, we didn't get that far. We didn't get that far. He was specifically talking about logic when we got there.
When he says, this bit about, it's the ultimacy of reality, whatever that means, I have no idea. He's making a characteristic. He's setting forth a characteristic of a being, and I'm just using the term being.
The ultimacy of reality is a cop-out instead of saying the omnis, because you can't say the omnis anymore because they're self-contradictory. And so I know that in that line of arguing, it goes, my deity is maximally X, Y, Z, right?
Yeah, that sounds like Plantinga.
That sounds like what? I'm sorry.
If there were a maximally great being or whatever, the modal ontological argument, which really is just as bad as all the other arguments.
It is. And That's why I want to show it on this show. You know what I mean?
Okay, because it did seem for a long time, it seemed to go nowhere.
Well, and
I'm just giving you my opinion.
No, I love that. And I've got to tell you that after that discussion, I went back and for weeks I dove back in and studied, and how do you move from is to ought, right? How do you move from your perceptions to making concrete statements about the world around you, right?
Which is what our alias Mr. Slay, whatever we want to call him, was doing.
Yes.
He was saying we have an entity out there who has these attributes. Can you think of another? It has to be this God, because you can't think of another entity with these attributes.
You can't,
when
therefore I'm
not
right.
Established
Exactly.
the attributes in the first place.
Exactly. And you know what? The fact that it got you that fired up to call in means that call was successful to me.
Look at that.
Oh, okay.
But I do got to tell you, if he were to call in with that again, I'd be a little more prepared. And that's something. That's another thing that I want to model. Is if I don't know a thing, I want to say I don't know that thing, or I'm wrong, because I don't want it to have that negative, stigma. I don't want people to go, oh, that person was wrong about a thing. I should never listen to them again. No, you should fucking listen to the person who says, hey, I was wrong. I want to learn the truth. Let's learn this together.
Right.
Right. That's the person that you want to get.
I couldn't agree more with that. But, okay, then let me give you another piece of information.
Sure, what do you got?
Because somebody makes another argument. This was another statement. We'll just call it this person, okay?
Okay.
When he says either there is a creator God or there isn't one. And he said that, shall we say, around minute number 10.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I believe I do, but you're going to have to fill me in on the details.
Step back,
yeah.
to make sure that I got it right, okay?
Okay. Yeah, so
there's a big problem with that. It's a false dichotomy.
Well, if you take a look at any given proposition, right, you have it and you have its negation, right? So what would the negation of that statement be?
That's not the reason. Let me give it to you.
Okay.
Have you ever studied Norse mythology? Norse creation mythology?
To a little bit. I mean, I've got the standard.
I saw the Thor movies.
Let me refresh your memory.
Okay.
According to Norse mythology, a giant named Yammer and his cow named Adhumbla, I pronounced that right. My Norse is a little rusty.
Oh, mine is
created the earth.
Okay.
What?
No, go ahead.
In China, you have heaven and earth was created when, at least in Chinese, at least one version of Chinese myth has that heaven and earth were in a state of chaos and that they broke apart, the lower part going, I guess, to, the nether regions, and the top part going, I guess, to the heavens, for want of a better term. And there was a middle part which holds the two together.
Okay, so you're saying in those scenarios,
creator God in any of those.
Right. So you would say there's no creator God.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why his statement was wrong. It's not one or the other.
Well, no, wait, hold on. He said it was either there is a creator God or there is no creator God, and you said in those scenarios there's just no creator God. So I don't see the problem.
Yeah.
It seems like it's either one or the other, and I think that's fair. If I'm looking at like a jar full of candy, and I'm saying, look, it's either an odd number or an even number of candies in here, it's going to be one or the other,
Oh, okay. I guess, okay.
Yeah. So
but the point is that it's an entirely different concept. In the Vedas, the whole creation thing is based on chaos. It's a completely different, shall we say, creation concept than the Western concept.
Okay, so I'm back. And I actually wanted to respond to that. So give me just a second before you move to the next thing, okay, Robert?
Sure.
Okay, so you do realize that the negation of a thing is not the same as its opposite, right?
Okay, it depends, I think, largely on what the subject is, but okay.
No, you have the proposition, and you have the negation of that proposition, right? So you have A, and the negation of A is not A, right? If you were to say that it's a dichotomy between
something with only two choices.
That dichotomy, that second choice, unless it is just the negation of the proposition, then it is another proposition that also needs to be verified, right? The statement
Yes.
that a creator God in the context that was given didn't exist, right? In your example, what you can say is that a creator God does not exist in the context that you gave. What you are not saying is any other proposition. You're not saying that no gods exist.
Right.
You're not saying that, an unidentified God exists, or that you can explain it, in some third, fourth, fifth way. Universe farting pixies is what, gets thrown around on AXP. And so when you're making that claim, right, I kind of want to stop on that because a lot of people make that mistake. And so if you're not making that mistake, that's fine, Robert, but I want to catch that for everybody else, okay?
Yeah, I'm just saying that basically what I'm really getting at is that in other mythologies, and I don't know, there are thousands of creation mythologies, as you well know.
Yeah, well, I'm sure,
you don't even have a concept of a creator, point blank. It's, as I say, in the Vedas. If you want to read them, they're pretty boring. But if you want to read them, there's no even concept of it. They can't even be compared.
Yeah,
it's a completely different mode of thought.
I guess I'm missing your point.
Yeah, it's the point being it's completely different. It doesn't even have a concept of a creator God, so you can't say no creator God.
Well, so if
the concept,
if his claim,
my point is that the concept's foreign.
But if his claim is there either is a creator God or there is no creator God, I mean that claim is still valid even if you're just saying there's no creator gods in those scenarios. So
yes, and I thought, and there's another dichotomy. There could be two creator gods.
But that's a different proposition.
It's a different.
So let me give you an example.
I know,
Robert.
Proposition.
Hold on. All we're saying is the first part. The other possible examples that you're giving are great ways to show that it can't be a dichotomy in that way. And we totally agree with you. We're just sticking on the negation of that, right? So in his statement, there either is a creator God or there is not a creator God.
Or at least one.
Right? You have the statement, there is a creator God, and the negation of that is not there is a creator God. Right?
Okay, but suppose there are two creator gods.
Yeah.
I can go to other myths.
Then that would fall under the
creator God.
Then that would fall under the negation, and it would still be true.
If he means by one God, but I took that to mean that either there is a creative force, whatever have you, or there isn't. Now, if there are two creative forces, to me, there's a third choice. That's the way I'm taking it.
I think that there are infinite third choices if you have a clever enough imagination.
Yeah.
That's right. And the people who came up with those creation myths had clever enough imaginations, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just
that's all I'm really saying.
Yeah, and I think we're just sticking on the terminology is all.
Yeah. But as I say, I just found it went on for about a half hour, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest with you, for what was covered, it was way. And then you got all hot under the collar.
I got pissed off, and I know I try not to do that because I want to follow the flow of the conversations. But this guy,
believe me, don't consider that a criticism. That's an observation. Okay?
He just got to the point where it was no longer about, and I know that we're talking about an old episode on a new episode, which is kind of weird. But I got to say, if you are showing yourself to be dishonest, or a dishonest actor.
That's the thing. And, look, remember, you realize this is not a criticism. You're getting out under the collar. You realize that?
Yeah, I do. I have an idea of what I want.
No, I do. I would do the same. I've had people lie to me. Absolutely lie. Or speak on things they don't know about. But for example, I'll give you an example. I heard a broadcast this morning where this guy said pi is evidence of a creator because it's transcendental.
Okay.
What?
I'm sorry, what?
No, that was my question.
Yeah.
What?
I'm sorry, I didn't. You said what?
Yeah.
I mean, what it shows, besides its idiocy, is a complete lack of knowledge of basic mathematics.
Well, and it's a contortion.
Yeah.
And it's a contortion that a lot of people do because they want to try and rationalize what's comfortable. it's very uncomfortable to say I don't know. And
I don't find it. I've never found it uncomfortable.
Oh, I still find it uncomfortable.
When you say I don't know, that's the beginning of research.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and that's what I want to model. But holy shit, that's hard sometimes. And it can be easy in some parts of your life and hard in others, right? But I'm glad that you and I, I think all three of us have the same conclusion. That is, yes, embrace when you say I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Beliefs should be provisional. They should be, able to be updated over time based on new information.
They can, but certain beliefs I don't think are. I'll give you one. The Earth revolves around the sun.
Yeah.
Come on, that's not provisional.
Well, if the Earth gets knocked out of its orbit tomorrow, then yeah, that would be provisional.
But now you're talking about a change of circumstances.
Exactly, that's the point. So, like, my beliefs are going to change based on the circumstances.
Sure.
There's never one belief that's going to that should say the same the entire time. Now, we can make useful predictions based off of our beliefs, and that's true. But whether a belief is going to be true or for all time or not, we really don't know that.
I didn't say it was going to be true for all time.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the present. And at the present time, the Earth revolves around the sun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the pragmatic assumption to make. Yeah. And that's,
I think, I'll be honest with you. That's why I have no use for philosophy. I'm very pragmatic.
Okay, let's entertain a hypothetical, okay? What if tomorrow a new discovery was made that showed that the Earth does not revolve around the sun, right? That there was some other set of circumstances, and you were able to use this new model to predict everything that we've been able to when it comes to the way that we observe the universe, and the way that we interact.
That would be highly unlikely, but if we're going to get into fantasy land, all right.
That's all I want. I said, follow me in this hypothetical. That's all I wanted.
Fine. If it's a hypothetical, then if it just were proved conclusively that the Earth did not revolve around the sun.
Right.
However funny that.
So what we're doing
is account for the seasons, the days, everything. I would then have to change.
Yeah. Then that's
all we're saying. We're saying that we're open to change, to new information and stuff, even if we think that the information we have right now is pretty stinking good. And I think for the most part, like the Earth revolving around the sun is. To be epistemically honest, meaning to be doxastically open to changing your mind about things, you have to be willing to admit to say, yes, I will change my beliefs if the certain criteria is met. That criteria being you could demonstrate that somehow the Earth doesn't revolve around the sun, which would be very impressive. I wouldn't recommend you trying.
Yeah, how do you account for the seasons?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So I think it has that explanation for how the Earth works has the best predictive power, and I think that's one of the many reasons why we know it to be true. True being, concordant with reality or whatever. But yeah, it's
So I'll give you an example of why this is important, right? Not the last week, but the week before, we had a caller who called in, and I ended the conversation when she said, "It doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you show, I will not stop believing in God." She said, we could talk and forever. There is no amount of discussion that will change this view.
Right.
Right. Yeah. That's just not skeptical. It's not taking the time, and it's not honest. Right. And so, even though we can evaluate, hold on a second, even though we can evaluate these different God claims and we can, come to the conclusions that we do and use the processes that we have, we still need to be honest and go, if there ever is enough evidence, if something does pop up tomorrow, the honest thing to do is to follow that evidence, because we don't ever want to do what that woman did when she called.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why. I know it sounds silly, but it's necessary. Say, I have 99.9 bar certainty that according to everything I know about the universe, this is true. But if you say 100%, then you're going to run into the chance of going, well, I know this thing is true, I'm going to stop exploring it. Right? And you had that when people were not guessing about the germ theory of disease, when people thought that you had different humors and it all depended on how much blood, mucus, urine, and phlegm,
yes,
I think it was, right? And if those levels were off, then you're going to get sick or you're going to contract a disease.
Or demons were.
And the words have still persisted in our language.
Right. And because of that, right, you had a view of the world, right? There was this idea of ether, right, that they thought was permeating through the entire universe. And until you were able to go, I'm not 100% on this, I'm open to being wrong, then
Right.
There's no...
I'm glad you mentioned the ether.
Oh?
Tell you why.
Why?
Because it's one of the few times with science, when science proves something doesn't exist. Are you familiar with the whole history behind it?
I'm familiar with enough. This is going to be the last trail we go on because we have a couple other calls, but I'm interested. What do you got?
Sure. But have you read Simon Singh's book on the ether?
No, I haven't. Have you, Dan?
Nope, I have not.
I advise that you do.
Okay.
The experiment, no such thing as the ether.
Yeah, I'll check it out. And
There's books on.
hey, Robert, we're losing you, buddy. I got my hands off the thing. Robert, we're going to let you go. Sorry to hear that, man. But that was actually a really good call.
That was interesting, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's important that we have these kinds of, like people get so upset over philosophy because it sounds so silly and pedantic. And I agree that a lot of these conversations generally kind of go in that direction because we're talking about hypotheticals that don't really matter or don't seem to matter, right? But they really do. Like you said, it's all about how willing you are to change your mind about things and what is going to convince you of that. And if you can't define those terms, if you can't define those conditions, then we will never be able to know whether you're actually open to change or not. You know? And we need to be having more of those kinds of conversations with people, I think.
Well, and I think philosophy is a really interesting place to discover those things because your epistemology doesn't just have to do with your beliefs regarding religion, right? Your epistemology is how you come to understand the world around you and know what is true and what is not true, right?
Literally everything. It's how you know everything. I mean,
so, here's the deal. You know somebody's not good at math when they go to the checkout, line of the grocery store and they don't know how to make change, right? But if you give, this is kind of a shortcut. Not everybody's in philosophy enough. It's a little easier to pick out, hey, this, the way that you're coming to this conclusion, why are you doing that? What are you accepting about this? And what do you understand about this that leads you to believe that it's true?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about philosophy is you're able to point those things out and hopefully come out a little bit more rational, right? A little bit more skeptical.
If your beliefs match the world just a little bit better, or at least appear to.
Yeah.
And that might be all that matters.
Yeah.
Depending on your worldview. But yeah.
If you're sitting on the fence, try skepticism. It's not scary. All right. So I'm going to move on